Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sin Bin. CNB Reggae continues in its quest to bring you the best of reggae happenings in the Mid-Atlantic. This time we are doing something special. One of the two of my favorite artists in the reggae game today are here to talk about their story involving coming together to make music. Hampton Roads icon Tony Brand of Cultivated Mind brings his original street-inspired sound to up-and-coming grinded-out vocalist Ashley LaRue. And this interview is about covering the new song they've released called Fill I Cup. In the movie Dead Poets Society, Robin Williams warned us about not trying to rank art or give it an objective score. Each person experiences it differently. Nevertheless, when I think of what it takes to compose the perfect reggae banger, this track has all the elements. It has great vocal harmony, proper use of authentic reggae horns, drums with a dub flourish, spiritual Old Testament messages, creative fills to keep the listener thinking about the sound, and an old fashioned Rasta toasting at the end that involves praising Jah while crushing the serpent with your heel. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome back to the Sin Bin once again the driving force that is Cultivated Mind, Mr. Tony Brand. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. Big up, Chris, and much love to CMB Reggae. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me and for picking up the tune, man. For real.
So you did a single with Ashley LaRue, who CMB Ray will be interviewing at a later time, called Fill I Cup. How did this collaboration come about?
I've known Ashley for a couple of years. She's a powerful force coming out of North Carolina, and had come through and done some shows at the legendary Boulevard Bistro, where everybody used to play at in southeastern
Yes.
Virginia, Virginia Beach. Big up VB Reggae. And before that, I'd seen her through Rise of Vibes. I believe Amber was the one who did the introductions and had us over on the same day.
So Amber knew Ashley before you did.
I believe so. Yeah, I think Scott and
Yeah.
Amber, Rise of Vibes folks knew. I'd known who she
Uh-huh.
was, but they were the first to actually put us together and introduce us.
Okay. All right. And so, but I mean that wasn't recent, right? I mean,
No,
that
I'm old, so after a while, like things start to get blurry in the 10 to 15 year range. So I want to say I met her like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe something like that.
hmm
Um, but around
But
that
I'm
time.
saying how did this how did the conversation come about the two of you releasing music together?
When you work with people all the time, man, like you throw that out. Especially I produce from the house, so I'm always like, anytime we do a track, let's do a track. And like I really like her vibe a lot. I like her intensity. I like the fact that she chooses her words wisely. Big part of reggae music is actually speaking good things, which I think that she's been, like I said, powerful lyricist. All her songs are anthemic too, which I really like. So I
hmm
like good hooks and stuff like that. So uh, that
Well,
was a
I know that she leaves Raleigh and she plays in Virginia Beach a lot. So
yes.
you've had opportunities to go see her.
Yeah, we've done shows and all that kind of stuff. So,
Right, right.
um, I met the band. Big shout to the actual Root band, Lars and Eli, and my man on trombone, Mr. Jeremy Bones, mighty dude,
Okay.
and trumpet player. I have yet to meet him, but big him up too.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, if you could raise the volume a little bit, that'd be
Yeah,
good. I
I'll
don't
talk
know.
louder. My bad, Chris. Sorry,
No
sorry.
problem. Um, so you made a decision to do some jazz fills in the song for the kind of for the purpose of mixing up the tempo, which a lot of great reggae does that, right? I mean the people who really want to take the audience and really really put them in their hands and guide them in the direction that they want to go. But I know that you've had a degree of jazz influence going back about a good 3 or 4 years now in an intense way. Most particularly Mingus and some of these other guys. Um, do you think the merging of that type of sound is part of a new trend or a new direction that reggae is going?
To be real with you, man, I started off in jazz and blues first. As a fan and kind of got in guitar that way. When
Hmm.
I got into my 20s, I think certain genres of reggae or subgenres will always kind of cater to that because, and I love that kind of stuff too. Really, I loved Ernest Ranglin and the Scatolites when he joined them on the second
Hmm.
iteration, and I've always liked the Scatolites. I really think that jazz was a big part of what made early ska, and kind of hearing things a certain way through the radio waves is what turned. I think that's always going to be at the heart of reggae music is a jazz influence. When people do embellish reggae music, even in the oldest stuff, it's usually with some kind of horn solo. A lot of times changing keys. Like I said, if you listen to a lot of Ernest Ranglin stuff, it becomes really apparent. He's the guy who pretty much invented the skank, and his albums are jazz, period, and like with some Caribbean influence. But that's where he wanted reggae, I think, to go was like a blending of Latin music and Afro music and Caribbean music all kind of and American blues and jazz put together. So I
Hmm.
think it's always been there. I think I've live. I did it a lot more than I did my earlier career. I'd say I've been doing that for probably like maybe over a decade at this point. But when I was in my 20s, it was more prominent in my neighborhood to have a dance hall approach and be a little bit more attacking on the mic.
A little bit rougher,
So
yeah.
yeah, so when I met you, that's kind of the phase I was in, and I was getting out of the jazz phase, but that was always going to be a part of the music, and I'm glad I get to do that now. Some of the stuff I got
Hmm.
to give fair shouts to. I have a lot of jazz coming out on my new records. There's a lot on No Quarter for Thieves. There's secret jazz tracks that are hidden tracks on the album, but um, I think the stuff for Feel Like Cup, I got to give a shout out. Some of the solos, like the second one that has keyboards, I'd say a good half to three quarters of that was a lot of Jeremy's idea. And I'm just kind of like going with him on the keys. So even though I have
Hmm.
some little runs and jazz runs, Jeremy also has some great
So
jazz
what's his
chops.
full name? Jeremy
Jeremy Rogers, they call him Bones, but
Bones.
he's got serious jazz chops too, and can play with a lot of soul and play whatever pretty much
Hmm.
you're playing and make it sound great. So a lot, I'd
There's
give him a shout for that too.
there's a serious jazz reggae crossover scene that is starting to come up here in Philadelphia. There's a band out of Wilmington, Delaware called Spooky Speaky, which are just, I mean, they're consummate musicians. I think I don't follow them too much because they are more of a jazz band that's toying around with reggae instead of the other way around.
I got you.
And then there's another band in Philly called Big Fire. So it is starting to emerge in different scenes, and with people also having a kind of a retro kick with all this rock steady.
Yeah.
Rocksteady lends itself to a lot of that experimentation, and people are doing that as well. So yeah, I guess it is happening everywhere. It's not just in certain corners.
It's more allowed within the musician circles because it's you want the instruments to speak. But I feel like there's generations, man, that kind of caught back to that or hail back to when jazz was a big influence in reggae.
Mhm.
And you even see that with pop stuff, man. I always forget her name, but she passed away. She was the British soul singer. Uh,
Amy Winehouse.
Amy Winehouse had a ska album, and it's like right on the edge of like ska, like Tin Pan Alley blues, and a little bit of like
Hmm.
jazz, but it's still ska. But there's always
Right.
like there's that kind of bluesy, jazzy element.
And Sinead O'Connor did an entire album of I think it was a Steel Pulse tracks.
I didn't know that. I know she's covered
Yeah,
Bob
yeah.
tunes,
It,
but
it it didn't make it on the Spotify. It was kind of like an underground release, and Steel Pulse produced pretty much all of it. It
that's
was just
crazy.
like more of a musician's kind of thing, but you can find it out there. It's underground. You can find it. Um, okay. So you've been crisscrossing the Mid Atlantic and the Northeast like mad this year, right? You've been all over the place. I
Yeah,
think the amount of time you spent in the state of Pennsylvania this year was probably more than all the previous years combined.
if I can big up the PA fam, big time CMB Reggae and all the PA fam, for just being awesome space camp route setters. I don't know if L&J Sessions qualifies for up there because they're down here
Hmm.
a lot too and got fam down here, but they've really looked out for me too as well up there, and I can't say enough for the bands and acts, all the DJs, DJ Red Eye, Dreadhead, Gibbs, man. I know I'm forgetting somebody off the top of my head right now. It's killing me.
Mhm.
But like everybody's, the whole Space Camp crew is awesome.
And
Um,
you're coming back up here on
Shot
Bob
T.
Marley Week, right?
Yeah, and that's another big shout out I want to give is to Rich Wilson and Mighty Mystic for having me. Rebel Sounds Rising has been real pivotal and keeping me relevant in the Pennsylvania
Mhm.
scene, man. So yeah, I can't say enough about how awesome PA is and how overlooked it is in the reggae world, especially in the United States. A lot of roots is coming from there.
Yeah.
It's Ross Biggs and Jem and Chati's crew. Like it's reggae. So um,
Hmm.
I feel like that's one of those spots where it's, always like we were talking earlier before this, it always seems to happen that way, but there's always those chosen few that just keep holding the banner no matter what, man. And whether times get commercial or not commercial, it's those guys that
Yeah.
keep it going, and PA
No,
respects that, you
a
know?
city scene is really a function of its number of hangers on. It's true. You
Yeah,
know, the fans drive it. And I mean, if you don't believe it, just think about Kingston, the way that it was. The reason the people in Kingston, Jamaica wound up creating a sound the entire world would know is because you had an entire culture that was dedicated to go to the club every Friday night and
yeah,
check
yeah.
out
And the
the
people
sound
working during the
systems
week
every
mixing.
Friday night.
Yeah,
The
yeah, and I
more
think
the more people that were out there, that drove everything else. You know?
yeah, you have people that really appreciate the music, and it's like the when you have a harmony between like an audience and a musician. And I don't mean like some weird culty thing where you wear white shirts and you go whoops and you go out to islands like Jared Leto. I'm saying like where you know what people want to hear, you enjoy making what people want to
Right,
hear, and there's like
right,
it happens like once that's
right,
the whole building your crew thing.
right.
But that keeps things going and brings life, whether people outside that particular community give a hoot or not, that community does, and those musicians do, and that's what draws people in, and makes your stuff
Yeah,
last. It doesn't necessarily have to reach every
yeah.
corner of the world, but it'll last.
No, I did not have any idea when I moved here to Pennsylvania that after I moved here, a bigger scene would emerge. But that is what's happened over the last 3 years. And obviously I'm grateful for it. It just so happened that uh, the DC scene seemed to have shrank at the exact same moment. You know,
Yeah, like we said, man, closing a lot
maybe
of the
maybe
main
I have
big
more influence
venues.
than I think.
I think the same thing like what Glenn did for Virginia Beach, what KP
Hmm.
did for Hampton,
Glen
United
Allen.
Souls did for
Yeah.
Hampton. I think there's people that like they maybe not necessarily musicians, yourself and PA, but they haven't like you're who cares? No offense in that regard. If unless we're jamming, then you need to learn how to play an instrument. But
Right.
the whole point of making music is for people to listen to. So for people who take that initiative to organize and centralize, that's a part of Rasta Tenet too. So to not
It
to
is.
yeah, it's not you're not supposed to be sloppy. You're supposed to have your stuff together. So
Right.
I think people like you that come through and do that, it shows that something is going on. It starts first with the musicians. It always comes down to us and what we're doing. And who cares? You can't eat if there's no cook. But at the
Yeah.
same time, like there's something to be said about people who take the initiative and see that and go, we need to organize this so it gets more attention, so people can come support what we're doing. And like
Right.
that's to me, all angels are important. The one who blows the trumpet is just as important as the one that wields the sword. You know,
Hmm.
so getting the word out to me and having guys like you that are like you can tell your heart's in it. I think
Yeah.
that's a big part of it.
Well, I mean, part of it is it's a drive. I mean, I don't want to be in this life in a situation where I'm just an old crank who goes out to the world and says everything that everyone is playing is not as good as the stuff that I used to listen to. But I gotta tell you, over the last 5 years, I feel like I've been blessed because that's not the case.
Yeah, you all have
There
tabernacle.
are modern people that I can go to and say, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, people like you, people like Ashley LaRue, people who will find a way to transcend whatever the stereotype is of whatever scene is there. Guys like Matisyahu, who find a way to sell out any arena anywhere in the world, despite the fact that he's set foot in Jamaica very rarely. Because true artists, they'll find a way to do it.
Yeah.
Your shit is good enough. Boom. You get on the stage, you make it happen. You know, we talked many years ago at Craft 60 Ale House saying there's
Shout
all
out
kinds
old
of
Craft
people,
60.
there's all kinds of people who will come up with some type of excuse as to why it is they won't fit or why they can't do it. But if you've got it and you can bring it, the rest of that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. You will
You
survive.
know?
If you that's what I mean about the symbiosis thing. Like if you know that that's the time you're supposed to be connecting with people. And like you always kind of my pops, a brilliant soccer player and coach for years, used to say like for this 90 minutes nothing matters. He's like there could be a war going on in another country. He's like doesn't matter for these 90 minutes. He's like that's why soccer is beautiful. Everything just goes away and you focus on the game. And like I think there's something I always joked with some of my bandmates about that back in the day. And was like for this the 2 3 hours we are out here playing, all you have to worry about is the vibrations you put down. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. So like this should be, and we shouldn't come here thinking this is and you know, as a band leader, you make things tense too sometimes. So I was just as guilty of tensifying situations. But you know, when things go wrong, sassafras like anybody else. But you know, you kind of have that mentality, and I think that's when you're able to. That's when you see people like light up when they get on stage, but they've been sitting there sipping a drink like nothing for like an hour, and then they get up there and they just tear it up because they know for that moment, that's like nothing. Everything goes away. Like that's all you have to worry about. So just worry about that and give it everything you got. And I think that translates to people, you know?
You're reminding me of the punk rock days where, where the test was when people started to mosh, where people would slam. If they were really feeling the music, they would do it. But
Then punch somebody.
if not, they would just be sitting there like this, looking, looking at the band doing this. And it wasn't disrespect or anything like that, but you had to move them.
Yeah.
If you moved them, you were good. If you couldn't, you weren't any good.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You had to have someone punching somebody. It just did. Different scene entirely. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just drawing off a personal experience. I
No, I
know.
played hardcore back in the day, man.
Ancient
Norfolk was known
stuff.
for that, you know, for a while.
Ancient stuff. Um, so yeah. Anyway, I mean, that like those are the things that we were talking about. So okay, let's move on. Let's get through some of this. You've been working on this Endurance album for quite a while, but I would imagine it's been pretty hard to sink the time in, particularly in 2024, considering how many shows that you did and how much time you spent on the road.
Yeah, the last few years I've been trying to stay consistent with touring, and it has made it difficult to finish the album. But I've also like when I've been home, I've used that time to work on collaborations and stuff. But about
Hmm.
4 years ago, I started the album, and there's been moments where hard drives just got corrupted or wouldn't give me the files.
Uh-huh.
And on some crazy weird trips, I opened up the file on my computer where it's like the digital drum beats, but it still has Hornman's take. So there's a couple songs that were like from way back then that I'm going to be Shielded Jehovah for the Birds. A lot of older tunes, Iron in My Heart, where I found like the original files and have brought them back and done real drums behind them, stuff like that.
Interesting.
But that way I could keep some of the trombonists. Chris Wyatt was fantastic. Did a lot of the trombone work on like at least 4 or 5 songs. Um, and so those are ones that I wanted to, be able to call and play. Remember that from back in the day? I didn't go to waste and we're dropping that. So Endurance is coming out in parts. Since there's a lot of songs and dub versions and stuff. And there's
Right.
about 3 different feels. One's like a blues jazz kind of feel mixed with reggae. One is I want to say like more New York boom bap, but still on the rubber dub vibe.
Uh-huh.
More dancehall and reggae. And then, kind of I don't want to sound like arrogant by saying this, but kind of what has become whatever my sound is, or
Right.
the typical King Street recording kind of vibe on one, and a lot of those are the original songs. So I have some stuff just you got to keep up with the Joneses, and production
Hmm.
has gone instead of fat, beefy, and analog. Now it's gone to crisp, clean, and digital. So since I've been able to, thank you, Sweetwater, for letting producers buy equipment you can't normally afford. But yeah, I got a bunch of stuff to kind of like bring that cleaner digital vibe to things as well as analog. So, I'm kind of doing it in pieces depending on how I want the production goes. Blues one, I'm obviously going to do with analog gear, and I've done a lot of that. So, but yeah, it's been about 4 years in the making. I have some great collabs on it. I'm very hyped to drop a track with Jojo Pellegrino, who's a personal favorite, and I've loved him. A man of bars, really a soldier for hip hop music that never got his flowers. And if you ever listen to him, there's no slack. It's just always 100%. Big shout to Gary Dredd as well from the movement is doing a verse, and it's already been recorded. I'm just working on the drums right now for the title track. That's another old one I had that I had to just take pieces of and kind of rebuild around it, and then keep his vocals. Stuff coming out real soon with Vince Lee from Rude Boy Rhythm.
Vince Lee, yeah, from Rude Boy Rhythm, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really hyped for this one, man. His verse was amazing. Vince is longtime brothers with me, and very excited to work with him. We just did Feeling Just Right this year, so we've already been in kind of in the works doing music. Make sure to check out his single. But there's a lot of stuff brewing. Lost Soul Society, man. I've been homies with them since a long time. So I have Reese, I have Ian, I got Josh Josta, I got a bunch of their crews up and on. And then I'm not gonna talk too much about it. It's like 90 names. I'm gonna drop it on a poster. But we just worked on King Street Dub Part 2, which is featuring like all the musicians, bass players, drummers, doing parts and stuff, horn guys.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you got Mark
That's what I want.
Hambone Coleman's coming back. Chandler's blowing on some, so we got some of the Lions Bridge horns and official Cultivated Mind family returning to play on this. Sanchez is kind of like leading this on percussion. And
Excellent.
TC is all over the place on all the albums because it's been long overdue. So big shout to Lucian.
Well, it sounds like you got a lot of work cut out for you.
I do, which is why I'm not going to be. I just did touring for like 5 or 6 years straight, and like the minute I got done teaching, I was like, "Let's hit the road." And so I was very happy to get on the road, and I really like I said, Pennsylvania, a lot of places I've been to, but it's time to like finally get back to dusting.
Well, I got some advice for you. It's going to be cold outside for the next 2 months. It's going to be really cold outside.
Isn't that for watching movies and eating
ham? Don't venture out. Just get the shit done.
No, I that's my goal for the winter is to get my diet right, get in shape, finish the albums, and come out swinging again for 2025. Because I don't know, I mean, a lot of us reggae dudes are all kind of saying the same stuff. Like we're all kind of raising an eyebrow and going, "This doesn't really feel like what used to give us that wash over feeling." I took Lucian, my sound man, to go see. We played with Barris Hammond like 3 years in a row, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what kind of experience. Yeah, you already know. Amazing to see him, but I don't think our sound man had seen like a real, reggae show. And he was like, "Yo, this is something else." And I was like, "Yeah, this is what we all came up with." Capleton, guys like that who gave it everything.
It's the lubricant. You gotta keep on churning out that stuff.
Yeah,
keep the audience engaged.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think we're all kind of you're going to hear a lot of actual roots music. I feel like coming out of the East Coast. John Brown's Body and a lot of those bands paved the way. And then I don't want to say a lot of us dropped the ball, but we all kind of bit into we have to survive and feed families thing. I think that's not just me that's kind of going. I think it's time for roots reggae music to stand up, and which it still has. Like I said, Tabernacle from your area is insane and does not get enough hail ups. Down South, iHeritage Band. There's some roots at Nature's Child. Like there's great bands that have been playing roots forever. Sheppy U, and like it's not that they're not there, and their concerts are amazing. And it's just that we got to get people paying attention to that. So some of the young whippersnappers, you guys put out some good roots music. Remind people what got you into this, and channel some of that in your next recording. And help us get things kind of get the hearts cleaned of the reggae scene and back to what it was doing. That fed us all.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we hit the time limit. We gotta wrap this up. So for the audience, one, check out Ashley LaRue and Cultivated Mind, Phil I. Cup in Spotify and various other outlets. Pretty much all of them, right? You can pretty much get them anywhere, right?
Yep, and a video coming to YouTube soon from Nikki.
Oh, you got a video.
Nikki Palm Trees. Shout out Nikki Palm Trees and
Nikki Palm Trees, very good.
Love you, sister. But yeah, they're cutting up a video right now, so there'll be something coming out for that too soon.
Okay, and then the album Endurance that will be definitely in the year 2025.
Early spring,
Um,
but I'm gonna be crazy and just keep dropping tracks. There's a lot of them, so you'll see stuff coming out the next month. I got the
uh,
music videos already made. Big shout to Zik Productions and Cannabis Festival up in Pennsylvania and Florida, down in Florida.
Cannabis
Um,
Festival. Are you going back on 420 Cannabis Fest?
I'm
And
trying to, and we just filmed two music videos there. One with Steve Martinez, big up Steve Martinez, and Jordan Weekly and Space Camp. So those are going to be coming out over the next month. They're from Endurance, but they're like the hip hop side of things. So there's going to be a lot of
right,
different stuff dropping just to kind of debut for all of the three albums of Endurance.
right. Okay. All right, Tony, thank you for joining us. And for the CMB Reggae audience, please continue to tune in every week for new original content. Um, Thank you, and I will see all of you next week.
Thanks for having me,
Take care,
Chris.
Tony. It's been a
Bless,
pleasure.
bro.